Hey guys, my name is Nogan and welcome to my C++ series. Today we're focusing on repetition control structures and we'll focus on while loops. Repetition allows efficient use of variables, can input, add, and average multiple number of variables eventually using a repetition structure like while loop. For this video we'll be focusing on while loop, and there are two more, which is for loop and also do while loop. The difference between these three types of looping repetition structures in C++ is very unique because each loop has its own benefits and use cases in terms of what you need, if I can say that. So in the main function we're going to be declaring a few variables. Let's say for example we're going to declare int number, and we want to add 5 numbers together. We can say we have int number1. Let's just make it put a variable and say number1. Okay, number1, num2, num3, num4, num5. As you can see, we declared a variable of int type, which is 5 variables of type int in one single line of code. Now if we want to add these numbers together, we will be eventually saying here num let's add this to another variable so we can store it in there, which means int let's say sum. Let's say sum is equals to num1, num2. But you guys get the idea. Eventually we're going to add all the numbers together and store them in this sum variable. As you can see, we're taking too long, and also this is a waste of time because now you can use only loop to minimize this. So you saw we're going to be adding all these numbers together and eventually store them here. So let's have a cout statement. Say enter numbers. Okay. Awesome. Okay, as you can see guys, let me just have another cout statement so you can see the sum of all the numbers added. Awesome. Let's compile our program. Awesome. As you can see now, here succeeded, which means there's no syntax error in the source code. Okay, let me run this program so we can see it's working properly. Awesome. So I'm going to add 10, 25, 10, 36, and also 50. Awesome. As you can see, the sum is 131. And you can also use a calculator separate just to confirm the calculations are on point in terms of here. Awesome. Okay, so guys, as you can see, we eventually written how many lines of code? 21 lines of code eventually to write this small program to calculate 5 numbers. But as you can see, we are using a lot of lines, and also it becomes much more clean in difficult to read, because as you can see this line 13 here, we have num1, num2, num3. Imagine if we have to add 1 million numbers together, which means you have to add num1, num2 until 100, num100, which is massive lines of code, and it's a waste. Now this way a repetition structure comes in to minimize your copying and pasting code, or repeating some variables. Awesome. Okay, so guys, right now I'm going to be speaking about the different types of use cases you can use with a while loop before we eventually try to use a while loop to simplify this code more and make it much more sufficient for us. So the first use case of a while loop is a counter control while loop, which means eventually, let me just remove this. Let's remove this. Now, a counter control while loop is when you know exactly how many times the statements needs to be executed. For example, we're going to say int counter is initialized at 0. Now, the syntax for while loop is while counter is greater than, is less than, let's say for example is less than 5. Now this is our condition in this parentheses here, so our condition has to be checked to be valid is true based on this variable here of counter. Now in the body of the while loop, we're going to say now, let's say for example we are going to just display a message 5 times. Let's say cout C++ while loop. And also have to add a counter control, which means it's an iteration have to add, which an iteration has to always be the name of the variable with a postfix, which is like an iteration of plus plus, because now this plus plus can add to this int count variable here, which means after this while loop is executed and the condition of counter is true, which means 0 will be tested here, which 0 is less than 5, which means this will execute in the body of the while loop. Now this counter C++ here eventually will add 1 to this variable of 0, then the count will become 1, then 1 will be tested again in this counter control, which means in a sequence of repetition. It's going to happen here. Now after this, let's compile our program. Control Shift B. Awesome, succeeded. Okay, let's run our program. Wonderful, wonderful. As you can see, guys, C++ while loops has been printed like 5 times, as you can see here. Awesome. Now this is basically a case 1, which is the counter control while loop. So this type of like syntax you see here is a counter control while loop, because now you have an understanding and also like like the number of iterations needs to be executed in the while loop. So this type of while loop is a counter control while loop. Now the second one, case 2 eventually, is a sentinel control while loop. Now Sentinel has also its own use cases, as you'll see in a moment, because Sentinel is like a variable has been tested based on a condition, and it will continue until when the user inputs the value. Now a Sentinel control while loop eventually is where the user is going to input a variable. Let's say for example let's say num. Let's say about a variable. Let's say int num again, and input num. Remove this for now and include num here as a condition. Okay, we'll say now if num is not equal to 5, cout, which means this was going to happen now here is where when the user inputs a value, the value is not equal to 5. It could be 6, it could be 7, it could be 10, it could be million, whatever. This while loop will execute eventually. And also in here, because it's now a sentinel control while loop, there needs to be a control variable inside the body of the while loop, which will be a C in int num. Let me just compile this. On point. Let's run this again. Okay, so now the command prompt is waiting for us to input any value. I'm going to input now 7, still printing out. I'm going to input now 9, still inputting, it's still like displaying a message. I'm going to input 10, I'm going to input 66, and also last more 100. As you can see, guys, because the sentinel control while loop is waiting for us to input a value that is not equal to 5, then this message will be displaying outside. Awesome. But if I input 5, now there's no output message displaying anymore, and as you can see, like there's no display message of C++ while loops anymore. Because why? We inputted the value that is equal to 5. Awesome. The last use cases of while loop will be the flag control while loop. Now the flag control while loop has a similar syntax structure as the first case while loop and also the second one. Now for here, we'll just declare a boolean variable. Let's say bool human. Let's say human is false. Human is false. Now let's move this. Now the condition will be not false. The condition will be not human. Say it's gonna be not human. It's our condition. Because now this will make it true. Now in the body of the while loop, we'll have like an if statement as a condition. So I'm just remove this. So if expression now which is gonna be dead. Let's say for example, if human is equals to, let's say for example false. Let's say false, false. Then human is equals to true. Also, let me just add another statement here. CL statement. It says I am human, not a robot. Awesome. Let's compile this. Awesome, succeeded. Let's run this and see. Good. So guys, you can see there's a message saying I am a human, not a robot. 100%. So as you can see now, this is like a flag control while loop that you can use in with the while loop statement. So there are 3 of them. The first one is a control. Is a counter control, and the second is a sentinel, the third is a flag. So it depends on the use cases that you have to use a while loop. It depends on what you want to do eventually. So these 3 use cases are much more efficient and much functional when you want to use a while loop in your program. Now let's go back to the previous example we did about the numbers. Okay guys, now let's convert this program now into a simplified version using the while loop as you saw in the previous examples. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to remove this in the main function. I'm going to declare 3 variables. The first is an int count, initialized to 0, and also int num, int sum, initialized to 0 also. Awesome. Now I'm going to see out, enter. Okay, now in a while loop, while is a keyword in C++. So in a while loop here, true is when our condition comes in. So which means here we're going to say counter is less than 5 because of our condition. If it's true in the body of the while loop, we're going to say now in here scene num and we're going to add all the numbers being inputted by the user, store them in sum. Let's now also include a counter control while loop so we can iterate over it. Awesome. So outside this, I'm going to say cout so you can see all the values being inputted. Awesome. Okay, so what's happening now in the while loop here is that when the condition is being evaluated here to true, the body, the code, the statement in the while loop will be executed from this first line of code of C, which means the user will input the value, for example, 10, 200, million, so on and so forth. And all the values being inputted by the user will be stored in the sum variable here, as you can see. And this counter control variable here, which means it just iterates and increments our counter value of 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4 until the value of the condition here is false and execute outside. And now all the conditions or all the statements in the while loop has to be, when they finish executed, now the last statement, which is the statement here of the sum is value is whatever, will be executed afterwards. So what's happening eventually, let's try and compile this. Awesome. Let's run this and see our program. So the first value will be 10, then will be 10, 25, 10, 50, and 10 again. Awesome. So if you calculate this, it's going to give you a estimated value of 105. So we have 10, we have 25, 10, 50, and 10, which means our program now works on point. If you look at the lines of code here from the previous example and this one, you can see that now we have a simplified version of the program where we're using a while loop to increment the value, and also we're using like a combination of the use case of while loop, which is like a control variable, and also we're using a sentinel variable in as well, which is awesome. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, click on the bell notification, and see the post on my channel.